What is up, guys? Hfmasters here. Today we're doing another LEGO Ninjago Legacy review. This time it is on the 71705 Destiny's Bounty. This set comes with 181 pieces and will retail for $130 in the US. Although this is based on the 2012 version of the Destiny's Bounty, I actually say in terms of the overall design and how this thing was built and put together, it's most similar actually to the 2017 Ninjago movie version of the Destiny's Bounty. Let me show you what I mean here. So the most obvious big change here is that this one actually has hull space. This entire section on the bottom is completely unpresent in the original 2012 version. It was just flat on the ground, there would be no space or interior whatsoever. It was just there. This version, it's far more built up like the Ninjago movie one. You get a whole area here and it's a lot nicer just in terms of that. However, I will say this is not my favorite design. It looks good, but I do gotta say this red stripe section is not my favorite thing. I do wish they would have gone with a more subtle color. Maybe just dark red, honestly, I think would make it look better. But for the most part, it is pretty good. And that whole thing stretches out and continues up until the dragon head. And I do like how they actually do make that kind of consistent. It's sort of like a flow. So, you know, the red part kind of flows into this and it moves all the way back. I do like the consistency they've gone there, even though I'm not a huge fan of the color choice. I think it's just, I think it pops a little bit too much. It's just a little bit awkward, but I do think for the most part it's fine. The actual head itself, I think it looks pretty good. I do think it's a little bit strange that they went with the brick built version, because in the Legacy Kai, Fire Dragon Jr. set, they did make a full-on molded version of the exact head that they would have used here, and they made it in red. So they already had that piece in production, and it would have been fairly simple just to throw that in here. But they went with this brick built version, and I think it looks fine. There is an adjustable jaw, so you get a little bit there. It does do something. There's also these sort of like tips. All of these are adjustable, and they can be angled around. And the most controversial thing is that obviously this head is kind of tilted. It's on an angle, it's facing downward, but look at that. Now it's, vertical, it's horizontal, it's parallel to the ground, and it's more like the original. I blew your mind. See, if you want to, that's an option. Over time, though, because this is attached to a hinge, it will eventually want to fall down. But the way it's done is that there is a tile piece back here, so if you really wanted to, you could just swap it out and put a 1x2 piece right on the end, right underneath this red part, and then it would stick and you could have it horizontal like that and parallel the whole time. That is just a more accurate look to the original, although I don't have any problem with it actually being tilted and facing downward. Now, as far as the actual brig section goes, I think it's pretty well designed for the most part. There isn't a lot on here, but there is a ton of just open space, so you can have minifigures populated throughout. Toward the rear section of it, there is a little tiny cannon that was present on the original. In this case, it's just a stud shooter. You can rotate it around and then you can obviously fire it. It's nothing too crazy, but it's something pretty simple. And there are a couple functions here, one I'll get into later, but the very first one is right up in this front section. There's just this little chain thing, and that drops down the anchors. And also, speaking of those anchors, there are two, and they actually are fully built up. They aren't the regular just pre-molded anchor piece. They are a built up thing. And I think it looks pretty good for the most part. I just find it interesting that they decided to actually, build these things instead of just using the piece they already have. Now, earlier I did mention interior space, so what you do is that there's just this section right here, and it's just completely able to lift up. And inside here it is fairly spacious. There's a ton of spots that you can put minifigures, but there also are two clips. One clip is empty. I imagine you can just put a weapon on there if you have any spares lying around. And the other one does have a little training robot. There also is a box, and inside the crate is just a bunch of little studs and little extra pieces and such. And then in the very back, there's a little cage thing. I imagine that's just like a little jail cell or something, and there are some steps. So if you have, the hatch removed, you can still climb back up to the actual bridge of the boat. And over here we have the bridge of the boat. I might have called the deck section of the bridge earlier, so sorry about that, but this is the bridge. Anyways, this entire part is my favorite of the whole build. It looks really nice, and they did a lot of cool, interesting techniques. Like right over here, this entire thing is built on hinges, and then they have these curved pieces that go up and around, and that whole design continues towards the back of the boat, and even on the back here they have more detailing, and it continues all the way down to the bottom by this rudder. It just looks really nice, and that whole thing, once again, it just continues all the way back here and it comes back up to the front and it just, goes all the way across. It looks really nice and it looks really good. But probably the best part about this whole thing is that this entire thing is modular and removable. So the roof comes off and then this entire part also comes off and it gives you a much better look at the interior space. So up here, this is basically the whole command center. This part right here is a sticker. I really wish they would have gone with a different design. Me personally, I really wish they would have gone with like the Great Devourer's head just going like through the screen for a sticker here. I think that just would have been really cool and a cool Easter egg, but the actual sticker here is fine. You can tell exactly what it's supposed to be. It is that whole map section, and I do think that looks pretty good. I just kind of want that Easter egg in there. I think that would have been really cool. But as far as the rest of this goes, they do have a couple more stickers. So right next to the steering wheel, there's 2 stickers, basically just more controls. And then there also are 2 little compartments to put swords, and they have the orange katana in the one compartment and nothing in the other. You can just put a different sword in there if you want to. Now this middle section actually just flips out and turns to like a whole portable dojo. So it looks pretty good. You got 2 katanas right here. You got more weapons and stuff just scattered throughout. And then also this little training dummy you can just kind of fit inside. I think this is actually a really simple thing, but it's really cool. It also is entirely angular, so you can kind of do something like that if you think that looks better. There are some cool options, but this whole thing I just think is a really cool small little thing they got in there. And then you can fold this whole thing back up and put this roof section on top. There's no big functionality with the roof. It's just something that's pretty well designed and looks really nice. There's a ton of just small little details that are fairly simply put together, but it just makes the whole thing look really good. My favorite thing that they added here is they got this, I guess, kind of sun window. This was something they had on the Destiny's Bounty in the show, but wasn't really present in the original set. And they got it in here, and I think it looks really nice. One of my favorite details. I also do really like the use of these hot dog pieces. Just, a cool little detail that I think looks good. And then that entire section can just be reattached fairly easily. But okay, it would not be the Destiny's Bounty if it didn't have some sort of flight function. So back here, we've got a nice little lever. You push it down and the wings come folding out. That looks really nice. Also, these wing pieces look really, really great. They're really faithful to the original, and they're in this really nice material. Like, it's kind of like a paperish thing, but they're slightly folded so they kind of splay out, so it kind of always looks like there's wind underneath them. I just really like the way they did those. But there's also one more thing with this function. So you pick it up, and then this one, I guess the left sort of propulsor is actually connected to a gear, and when you fold that, these move down and these little intakes pop out. So I'll just do that again real quick so you can kind of see that. It's fairly simple, but it's really nice. It's also something that got added to this set that was not present in the original one. These little small thrusters on the front, something that was present in the show but not present on the original set. And I think it was just a small detail, but it makes it that much better. The only problem that I have with this function is that over time, if you're not careful, these chains, which kind of connect the whole wing folding out assembly, they can get caught. If they do get caught, these wings won't fold in all the way, so you have to kind of mess around with them and get them unstuck. So that's just one thing to kind of be careful with. As far as the minifigures go, you do get Sensei Wu, Kai, Jay, Cole, Zane, Samurai X, and Young Lloyd. I think this minifigure selection is pretty solid. You do get all 4 of the golden weapons, and you do get 2 exclusive figures. Those exclusive figures being Young Lloyd and Samurai X. Samurai X is very similar to the one that came in the Samurai mech from Legacy, the original Legacy wave, but it just does have slightly different printing on the torso. And then Young Lloyd is just a full-on straight exclusive. There's nothing similar to this at all in terms of Legacy, and it is something that's nice to have. Although, do gotta say, it would have been a little bit nice to have Garment on in this set. Just saying. But still, pretty solid minifigure selection. Nothing to complain about. Although, if you do have the Monastery from last year, you aren't really missing out on much, since most of these figures are just the same. Although they do have a little bit of an armor add-on piece now. So overall, this Legacy version of the Destiny's Bounty is a really, really nice set, but I can't help feel like there's something missing here. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's this red line up here that's throwing me off, but there's just something that feels off about it. From an objective lens, this is at the bare minimum the second best. This is much better than the original 2012 version, and this is better than the 2015 Final Flights of the Destiny's Bounty set. I'm not really going to say it's better than the Ninjago movie one. That one is still the king for me, but this is a fair and solid number 2 for me. It is very good in terms of a build, and let's say you want to count the land bounty. This is also much better than land bounty. For the same price, this thing is like years above the land bounty. The land bounty can just, no. That thing doesn't even compare. It's not even on the same level. This is much better than that. But again, I don't know, something's missing. It's like missing some charm or something. But even still, it's still a very good set. Minifigure selection, I think it's fine. I do wish Garmadon was included. Obviously, he wasn't, and he was originally going to. But I just think it would have been good to get one villain in this set. Even, like, because young Lloyd kind of, he, like, barely counts, and young Lloyd's kind of a scrub anyways. He can't really compete with the ninja. That was kind of, like, the thing. So, that is just whatever. I also would have liked to get some snake, you know, like, maybe a scales. Legacy scales, could we get that at some point? Probably not at this point. But, hey, if they ever want to make some legacy villain vehicles, might be a good idea, just saying. That could be something they conclude. But overall, as a set, this thing, I think it's worth it. I think it's a good and worthy flagship, and I think it's a very nice remake of the original 2012 Destiny's Bounty. But that is it. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, see you guys later.